Welcome to episode 7 of Secrets of the Universe, Walking the Conscious Path with Steve Hasenberg. I'm Greg Agnew. This episode is titled The Great Remembering and the Great Forgetting. So Steve, this relates to what we were talking about in previous episodes. So please explain the title and what it means.
Well, you know what I'm thinking about right now? Because all of this series has a flow through, but you can watch each one separately and get something from it. So I had a flashback. So I just went back to that Tibetan saying, which they say, when a person is born, they cry, and when a person dies, they laugh, okay? And we all liked that when we heard that.
Yeah.
What does that mean? It means that when you take birth, you forget. You forget that there was a life experience before birth, and because we forget that, we also forget there's a life experience after birth. Chief Seattle, who I've mentioned before, the great medicine man from the 19th century, said, "There is no death, there's only a change of worlds." But as we go from world to world, and we're talking about being in the material existence, and in our last video we were talking about being in a spiritual existence.
Right.
So when we make that transition at birth, as little infants, we do carry some of that heavenly aspect with us. And I'll give you an example of that. I remember that when my daughter was about 3.5, her name is Elise, and she knew I meditated, so I must know everything about God and the stars and everything. And she came to me one day and she said, "Daddy, what does God look like?" And I was taken aback. And I thought, wow, am I going to keep my composure about this? Because I have no idea what God looks like. And I waited for a minute and I said, well, I'm not quite sure. She said, "Daddy, I know what God looks like. God is light."
Wow.
And I thought, wow, that's true. She remembers being in the world of light. She remembers being in heaven. So kids often come up with very wise things. Even if you take a look at child prodigies, I've always been fascinated by this. A child who begins playing piano by ear at 3 or 4 years old, and almost seems like a concert-grade pianist by 7. Vladimir Nabokov, the great Russian writer who wrote Lolita, one of his books, he was corresponding in 5 languages at the age of 6. So there are these energies that come with us, and what happens from the age of about 1, 0 to about 7 is we acculturate. And in that acculturation, we kind of grow an ego, we get attached to people, and we have a personality. And that becomes much stronger than where we came from. So in the last episode, when we were speaking about the whole idea of remembrance,
Right.
in the Aboriginal and Indigenous tribes, we don't really have ways of remembering where we came from. We don't have ways of remembering where we're going. And so we're kind of stuck here in a vast space, 93 million miles from the nearest star, which is the sun, and we feel quite isolated and alone often. It's a very existential situation.
Right, right. Is there something about Western culture or modern culture in particular that is so distracting that it makes us harder to have that connection? We are being forcibly removed from it every day.
Right. The thing that happened probably, you could go back as far as the 19th century, in the beginning of the industrial, when we were agrarian and we became industrial. from that point, and certainly also with science, and again, I have nothing to say that's negative about science or industrial revolution. Everything is about balance, right? But from that point on, we started, the roots that we have went deeper and deeper into matter. Matter mattered more, if I can use that phrase.
Right.
So at this point, matter is all there is. We could take somebody off the street and listen to what we just talked about in near-death experiences, and they'd scoff at us. So there's the sense of forgetting. The title of this video is The Great Remembering and the Great Forgetting. So this was one of the stories I wanted to tell you. When I was born, at the age of about 8 months old, my mother would read these wonderful rhymes to me. I only know this because she told me, I don't remember it. So she would read all these lovely children's rhymes. And at 8 months old, I would repeat them back to her and know them by heart on the first hearing. Now this freaked her out so much. She didn't tell me until I was about 30 years old. This freaked her out so much that she took me to Rutgers University. We lived nearby. And they studied me.
Wow.
For a couple of, I don't know, a year perhaps, because they wanted to figure out how I was able to acquire so much language at such a young age. You don't know this.
No.
You don't know who you're dealing with.
I don't.
And then at 3 years old, I forgot everything. And as a matter of fact, most of my life, I felt very ignorant and stupid. I would use the word stupid. I had a hard time with really cognizing language at times and also knowledge.
So you actually forgot too much.
So I forgot, it was almost as if I became a special needs child in some way. So fast forward, I'm 37 years old, and there's this psychic that everybody was talking about in San Francisco. His name was Don Tillman, and everybody was going to see him. And I went to see Don Tillman, and Don was a British drag queen, and very elegant. And we had high tea before my reading. And he sat behind a beautiful wooden desk, and he started reading me. The first thing he was describing was this desk that I had, piled high with literature and books, and I didn't know what he was talking about, but I started weeping. And he said, I said, Don, I don't know what's going on, but I couldn't stop crying. He said, I'm describing your desk from your last lifetime. I said,
wow.
What was my last lifetime? He said, you were a Don at Cambridge University. You were very, very famous. And the first thing that shot out of my mouth was, why did I feel so stupid my whole life?
Did he give you your name? Your
No,
previous name?
He didn't give me a name, but
Wow.
he described the room and the desk, and I had chills out of nowhere. And I said, why did I feel so stupid my whole life?
Yeah.
He laughed. He said, you were a genius in your last lifetime. But you made a decision that in this lifetime, the most important thing was not scholarship. It was knowing God. And you let everything go at age 3. And I just sat there like, at age 3, that's what my mother told me, right? So this is a great example of forgetting where we were and what we had known, and then doing it for purpose.
Right.
This story has so many multiple meanings for me, because no matter what we've been through, and this is another theme of the series, no matter what we've been through, and I had so much trouble in school, all the way at college something opened up in me, but all I cared about was music. I played music night and day, but I couldn't do schoolwork. And so this series has so much to do about where we find ourselves and knowing that there are deeper meanings to everything, much deeper. The common thing to talk about these days is what is the lesson in something? And there are lessons in things. For me, it was losing that for a bigger purpose, which now I'm discovering in my life. It took a long time. But that's why I know I went into meditation. It was a desire to know myself at my depth. I thought that was an interesting story.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, did you track down the documents at Rutgers and try and see what they have on you?
I know, right?
That would be fascinating
Wouldn't
to know.
it?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it?
What did you know then? What did they document?
I know, it's so... my mother didn't tell me till I was 30 or
Right.
35.
Right.
And I said, Mom, why didn't you tell me about this? She said, I didn't want to... I think it disturbed her so much that she didn't want to talk about it.
Right.
She thought I was this strange anomaly.
Which you saw the transition from you being the child prodigy in some ways to suddenly struggling at school.
Right.
So as a parent, she probably felt like it was something to do with her.
You are now my therapist. I'm sure that's true. I'm sure she felt that way.
Yeah, all parents would.
All parents would. So this is the idea of forgetting and remembering. We come here and we forget. The ego takes root in the material world. The other thing that's important about this is the ego, when it's separated from all this vastness, from all this joy, from all this spirit, from Rumi's tavern that we talked way back in the other videos about, this place where everybody is before taking birth, after death. All the Muslims are there, the Buddhists are there, the atheists are there, the Native Americans are there, they're all celebrating. They don't notice that they're different, right? So we have this heritage, I call it our cosmic heritage, and I use the word becoming a cosmic citizen. This is the theme that runs through this. There are deeper meanings to everything that we do, all of our actions, all the love that we give, all the love that we hold back. I'm going to go to the NDE for a minute because I remember one quote. One of the people who came back from the near-death experience said, and this is a remembering of what's real, what's true in the world of fake news. There is truth inside of us.
Right.
This is so important. So he said, love is the only thing you can take with you. The love you give away on earth is what you take when you go to heaven.
That's a great, it's a great thing to focus on, to just think about. It's so deep.
Isn't it?
Remarkable.
Yeah.
Now the next episode is, episode 8 is called Awakening. So is that's the next part of the path?
It is. It's about awakening from our slumber. And our slumber is that we've forgotten who we are. And we become a singular, isolated ego without the connections that are our birthright.
Great. Well, thank you very much for watching episode 7 of Secrets of the Universe, Walking the Conscious Path with Steve Hasenberg. I'm Greg Agnew. If you want to ask Steve a question and have it answered on this series of videos, you can email him. Details will be at the end of the video and also at stevehasenberg.com.